Hi,
Hello, how are you?
I'm great. It's a good afternoon or an evening already.
I
It
know,
feels like
it's great.
spring.
I know, it's been so nice today. It is like spring, and tomorrow is supposed to be even warmer.
I know. So we're getting super excited. The days are getting longer.
Oh,
Every
thank
morning I
goodness.
go out and run, it gets sunnier earlier. It makes me feel good.
We're getting there.
All right. Looks like we've got some folks already in the chat.
Yes.
Hello, good evening. We're going to get started in just a little bit. Glad you're early. Hope you have your Drawbots materials with you.
And Coach Matt, the kids that we have here, we also got some blank paper for. Is that a good thing to have
That's
on
a
hand?
great idea. Thank you for bringing that up. Blank paper is a great place to start. You may find that bigger pieces of newsprint or something from a newspaper, wrapping paper, anything sort of bigger than a standard piece of paper is always super luxurious. Also, lay out pieces of paper if you have extra scrap pieces of paper, because our drawbots are going to move all over the place. Don't go and find anything super special. They're going to make marks regardless of where you put them. And one other thing, we'll talk about this when we're all together, these markers are not made to last forever. So if they do get on hands or if they get on clothes, these are water-based and they'll wash out. So don't worry about this ruining anything. These are not permanent markers. They're super bright colors, but they're not forever colors.
And we have a question in the chat, and I'll say it now, but you all will hear it again once we officially get started, that yes, we cannot hear you. Your audio and your video is off, and that's just for your privacy purposes. We may have kiddos who are logged in without a grown-up in the room. So yeah, we cannot hear you, but we have the chat open, and we'll do our best to answer any questions you might have.
That's right. We'll be keeping an eye on it.
Yes.
So thank you for asking that, Chris. All right.
All right, it's officially 6:30. I think we can go ahead and start. So I'll get my little portion out of the way with, since we have Matt. Matt is the star of our show. Yeah. So thank you everyone for joining us. I am Miss Katie. I'm here from Calvert Library. I'm one of the children's librarians here at the Prince Frederick branch. And thank you so much for joining us tonight to build our Drawbots. And we have our wonderful Coach Matt from FutureMakers, who has
Hi there.
created these amazing kits for us, and he is going to go over how to build them and the science behind them. So make sure you've got your kits in hand. Now, don't worry if you have any problems. Like we said, we know we can't hear you, we can't see you, but you have instructions in your kits. The presentation is going to be recorded and will be sent out in a few days to the grown-up who registered you, so you can watch this again if you need to. And it's handy to have a grown-up or someone older nearby if you can, to give you an extra set of hands if you do have any issues. But yeah, let us know if you have any questions in the chat, and we will try to help you if we can, which I'm sure we can.
Yep.
And then
Thank you.
one more thing, and then I
Yeah.
will turn it over to Coach Matt. We have our registration open for next month. It is our final one in our series. It's so bittersweet. We've had so much fun with these kits, and we hope to have more in the future. And it's electric vehicles. So make sure you register for that one right away, so you don't miss out on all the fun. All right, Coach Matt, take it away.
Thank you, Coach Katie. I appreciate you, and I appreciate everybody for being here this evening. Tonight's project is challenging, but not impossible. And I'll tell you why it's challenging. It has to do with the two big ideas that we're going to be covering tonight. Tonight's ideas are all about vibration, which, if you've made a Wigglebot in the past, this may seem familiar. Vibration. If you haven't made a Wigglebot in the past, you're in for a treat, because we're going to be using vibration along with iteration. They sound the same. They both end with shun, but in this case, actually more like apples and dolphins, like completely different things. They're not really related, but they're both all about engineering. So I'm going to share my screen. I'll keep an eye, the best I can, on the chat. Coach Katie will also be able to keep an eye on the chat. We're going to be spending the next 25 minutes or so building and iterating. Here we go. So, Drawbots. Drawbots are what they sound like. They're machines that are designed and built to draw. When we make Drawbots, we're actually making something that doesn't have a plan. We're starting with a kit of parts. So the way I'm going to show you how a Drawbot could be made is only one way, not the only way. Your instructions in your kit have an example or a couple of examples of ways it could be built. Tonight, we're just going to cover one possibility. On the scale of mild to spicy, this is medium. You may find a milder way or a spicier way you want to build yours, but I suggest following along just so you can get an idea and be ready to go off on your own. This project is designed to be built and rebuilt. So what we'll be ending up with this evening is a machine that wiggles and moves. And if it's engineered just right, you could make it stand on paper and watch it draw. But again, whatever you throw at it, it becomes. There's really no wrong ways to make a Drawbot with these materials. They're designed to have many, many possible choices. If you're a kind of person that really needs specific steps, I'll help with that too. So, big idea number one, vibration. What's going to make our Drawbot move is vibration. But what's going to make our Drawbot awesome is iteration. What do these things mean? Well, vibration you've probably played with before. Things that shake and wiggle vibrate. In fact, vibration is the reason why you may be able to hear me this evening, because your eardrums are vibrating with sound waves moving through the air. Or you might play a guitar and you've seen and even felt guitar strings vibrate and make sound. Vibration is movement that turns into lots of different ways that we perceive things. In this case, we're going to feel something move because of vibration. But that vibration and that shaking and wiggling, let me reinforce this, is a kinetic force. We're taking stored potential energy in a battery, running it through a motor with a weight stuck on the end of it to make it shake and wiggle. It sounds like science. I hope that's okay. Iteration. Iteration is also science. Engineers, designers, architects, artists, bakers, people who test out recipes, maybe they didn't like it the first time, they want to try it again. That time they want to try it again is an iteration, a change in the original plan, another version of the first thing. So you're going to be making it better. The first time you'll make it okay, or maybe it'll be bad, who knows, but you will be able to make it better the next time. That's the wonderful thing about these materials. You can build it again and again. Other big ideas. You're going to be using a motor and a battery, and that battery and motor are connected together to create a circuit. A circuit's a pathway for electrons to flow along. In order to make our motor spin to the left or to the right, we just stick a battery connecting one wire to one pole of the battery and another wire to the other pole. Those are the metallic ends, those little round ends of the battery. There's two of them, and it'll make that motor spin. But we're going to use that motor to create mechanical vibrations. We're going to attach something to the motor to make the motor spin with some weight attached to it. And when that weight moves, it's not balanced, and it will zigzag back and forth really fast, and it will vibrate. You'll be able to see it as well as feel it wiggling and vibrating. So let's get started. Now, again, this is a way of making things. It's not the only way to make it. Did I get that across? This is one possible way. It's not the only way. There's so many choices. I hope that you're okay with choices, because choices are sort of cool. Sometimes they're a little overwhelming. I think that we could get started like this. Also, editor's note, this is not the technique shown on the instructions. The technique on the instructions works pretty well too. This is an enhancement of that. So follow along at your own pace using your printed guide, or follow along with what you're watching right here. We need to check that we've got the stuff that we need. You should have a motor, That's the thing with the black and red wires. A gear that attaches to the motor shaft, the little spinny part on the motor. A rubber band. If you don't have a rubber band in your kit, any kind of rubber band or even some tape will work. A battery. If for some reason your battery is not working or you can't find your battery, any AA or AAA battery will work, or C cell or D cell, those big giant ones. They have the same amount of voltage. The bigger those batteries are, the longer they last, but they're all the same amount of juice. And then there's foam parts. Yours are in a sheet. These are already taken out of the sheet. And then there's a set of markers. So you should have a few markers as well. Now, the markers are an important part. The markers we share, they work really well. Just about any kind of markers will probably work, and you'll see what I mean. Your parts are going to take a little while to extract. So maybe follow along, and we'll just get a couple of parts out. First, find the really big circle part, and find a part that looks like a V shape. It has 3 holes in it, and it's on an angle. If you can find the big circle part and the V-shaped part now, that would be really helpful. So take a moment, pop that out of your sheet. I'm going to double check that there's no questions in the chat. Looks like everybody's doing okay. All of these pieces and parts were designed by a designer on our team. Her name's Maddie McConnell, and Maddie's an amazing inventor and an awesome, awesome coach. And I think that this is a super, super fun project that Maddie's designed. The L-shaped one is not necessarily what you need right now. There was a chat from Rachel, probably the one that's more like the angled one. Looks more like a duckbill or a Pac-Man without its body, that kind of shape. You'll see what I mean in a moment. So first things first, if we're going to make a drawing machine, we need to make it stand up on legs. And the best legs that we have are markers. Could you figure out how to combine that big circle piece and 3 of those markers to make them all stand up? Now, if you're looking at your instructions, go ahead. It gives you a great idea. But I challenge you, don't look. Just think and take a minute. How would you connect your markers and this circle to make it all stand up? The marker caps, pro tip, should be facing down. So the big colored caps should be on the bottom. You'll notice as you're trying to fit things together that they're a little tight. That's by design. We knew that this was going to possibly be used again and again, so we didn't want to start with openings in the parts that were super easy to slide things in. The material is a little stretchy, so every time you use it, it'll stretch just a little bit more until it's just right. So the first time you connect things together with all these pieces, it's going to be tight. Don't worry, it gets better.
Coach Matt, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
We have a couple people who are wondering, are they supposed to pull their purple and orange part apart or keep them together?
Keep it together. If your purple and orange part look like they're going to come apart, try to keep them together. And it really is up to you. There's another question in the chat. Should they go every 2 holes? Should they go every 3 holes? Well, there's not an even number of holes. So you're gonna need to figure it out. We tried to not make everything symmetrical in this. Things need to balance, but they're not gonna be exactly right all the time. So go ahead, figure out where you think those markers should go. Again, your choices the first time, if they don't work, you have other choices. You can try it again. Like I mentioned before, pro tip, if you find that the openings are a little too hard to work with, pre-stretch them. Question in the chat, do I poke all the holes out? Yeah, if there's any little parts that are still stuck in them, pop those out. You don't really need to keep those little tiny pieces. Those are just leftovers from our special die cutting process. And make sure that those go in a good place like the trash instead of in like the nose of your baby sister. You know what I mean? Pre-stretch those openings, give it a little bit of a stretch or a smush, whatever you need to do. We have this shape, this sort of V shape with 3 holes. I'm going to suggest that in order to get your feet a little wetter and a little more used to connecting parts and pieces, use that 3-hole connector to keep your markers at sort of an angle like a tripod. Maybe like this. It doesn't have to look exactly like this, but it gives you a sense of how things could be used together. Parts can connect to parts, markers can connect to parts. This allows you to create a structure that stands. And again, takes a little bit of practice. Yours doesn't have to look just like this. To quickly recap, we've gone ahead and we've taken 3 markers and made that circle part the piece that holds them in such a way where it can stand up. This is one way of building a set of legs for our marker body. There's lots of different ways, and you'll see what I mean soon. But if you pre-stretch the holes, it makes it easier to put those markers where they can go and attach parts together, like this 3-hole piece, using that to stabilize your markers. So the markers stand more like a tripod than a set of vertical lines. Tripods are very sturdy, by the way. Now, if you've done other FutureMakers projects, you might have come across this situation: a rubber band and a battery. The rubber band is designed to stretch from end to end around the battery. Why would we do this? Because we like to do things that are challenging. Also, we need to make a battery pack. So if this is the hardest thing you've done in your entire life, congratulations, because this thing it's not easy. Stretching that rubber band from end to end, this is the bane of some people's existence, but it can be done. We've seen it happen. 2nd graders have solved this problem because they have perfectly small fingers and can stretch these rubber bands way better than old people. Your battery can go somewhere. We're going to need to include a battery and eventually a motor. So here's a suggestion. There's a lot of places a battery could go, but one of the places where a battery fits really nicely is in that larger hole that's right in the middle of that circle. Again, it's not the only place it can go. If you look at your other parts, there's places that batteries could fit. But for our practice project right here, this is a good place to go. So we've stretched a rubber band around the battery from end to end. If it pops off, stretch it right back on. And then find a spot that can hold that battery, maybe right there. So we're about halfway into the build. And I want to remind you that this project really is about iteration. So if it doesn't work perfectly the first time, or if you find a simpler way to make things work, congrats. It gives you an opportunity to make changes and do yours in a completely unique way. All right, let's keep moving. One of the things that I really enjoy about working on projects like this is that they have just enough step-by-step and just enough choose your own adventure to make it super fun. This part is very step-by-step. We need to attach our gear to the end of the motor shaft. It's designed to fit on either way. You'll notice there's a little tiny hole on either end of that gear. It doesn't really matter which goes, but if you really want to make it look like the picture, here's an example for you. Your wires are sticking out one end, the gear is attached to the shaft of the motor on the other end, and it's designed to spin. So if you want to give it a little spin, go right ahead. Question from Rachel: which way does the battery go in, up or down? Either way. And you'll see the difference if you really look closely in a couple of steps when we get that battery to make the motor move. But either way, the battery goes in. All right, we've got a gear attached to our motor. I want to say something very, very clearly. The wires that are attached to that motor are attached with solder. Solder is like metal that acts like glue. The solder is not a forever material. And if you're a little rough with those wires, it could accidentally pop right off. It may not make that sound, but if it pops off, that won't go back on. We don't send out emergency soldering kits with this project. In case you are wondering, be careful with your wires. If the wire breaks, you are, as they say, short-circuited. We're going to think now about how could we get that motor attached to our marker body. Here is one way of doing things. You'll notice there's a big L shape and a straight piece. And the big L shape and the straight piece have this rectangle cut out of the end of it. Oh no, Emmett's motor broke. Oh no. Oh, I'm so sorry, Emmett. Oh, it's so painful to hear. Before we go, I'm going to share some sources of supply where you can find hobby motors. They're very inexpensive and they're actually pretty easy to get. So I'm sorry yours broke, but there's more of them in the world. I promise will help. That L and straight piece can be combined together. And it can be combined together in a very specific way. It's designed to be held together with the rectangular body of the motor. Imagine, if you will, sliding the foam pieces down over the end of the motor, past that gear, right onto the body. You may need to stretch and squeeze a little bit to make it open up a little bit so it snugly slides right down. That's where the motor fits best. Again, this is one way of holding our motor in place. It's not the only way, but this is one way. We're going to make a tripod for our motor. So if you want, slide the motor through the L shape and then through the straight piece rectangle. I'll show you what this looks like in a moment, and I'll come back to this if I'm going too quickly. We have one last piece before we really get things wiggling. You'll notice there's lots and lots of different parts we haven't used yet. Those are all usable. Hold them for later. But remember I mentioned that we were going to make a weight and make the motor wiggle with an offset weight? This is going to be our weight. If you take a ring connector, has a big hole and a single bump sticking out of it, you can squeeze that bump and put it in the opening of a two-hole connector. You'll see what I mean like this. They're designed to insert into each other. The parts all connect to each other. It doesn't matter which color part goes where, as long as they connect. So take these two pieces. This is just an example. There's many other ways of doing it, but these are maybe the easiest. On the mild to spicy scale, this is the medium technique. Connect them together. Once you've got them connected together, where could we put that? Well, we have this motor that's holding our L and straight piece together. It looks like a giant Y. If we just add that to the end of the motor, we could add some weight to it. If you look closely here, you can see the motor is actually holding everything together. The zigzag piece we put on top, the Y is connected by the motor, And now we have to figure out the final step. How do we get it all together? Before I do that, let's recap. We found our rubber band and attached it to our battery. Inserted a battery where it could be held. In this case, this example holds it right in the middle of that big round piece. We attached a gear to the end of our motor shaft. And then we were careful not to break our wires. The motor was used to hold pieces together. We have the big L and the straight piece with the rectangle opening at the ends. That motor fits perfectly in and makes sort of a Y shape. From there, we made a zigzag out of 2 parts. You could even add more parts if you wanted to, and attached that to the whole contraption. Our motor now has a weight on the end of it. Now, for those of you that have already tried, you may have made this. I mean, it might be done. It might be wiggling already, but some folks might not be there yet. So here's the last sort of way I'm going to suggest. Again, it's not the only way. It is one way of making this wiggle. This complicated illustration right here shows something happening. We've attached the Y piece to the holes in the big circle. We sort of had to smush things together, but it's all connected. Now, where you choose to put this is up to you. The more tightly connected you have all the pieces, the more the wiggle will travel. I'd like to show you how to make it wiggle. The wires that are coming out of your motor can reach down to your battery pack. The battery now has a rubber band around it. That rubber band is going to help us hold wires in place. So if you plug a wire in underneath the rubber band on one end or the other, you'll notice that motor might start to spin. This is our circuit. Looking closely, you'll see the wires go underneath the rubber band and touch the end of the battery. Look closely here. If you really need to get a view, the battery is being held by the rubber band. And to keep those wires in place, one wire slides underneath the rubber band all the way on one end, and the other wire slides underneath the rubber band on the other end. If you make good contact, metal to metal, you'll notice the motor will start to spin. Again, the wires need to be underneath that rubber band, and they can't be on the sides, the long sides of the battery, because there's no metal exposed there. That's not where we're going to have a circuit connected. So let's do the last review. For those of you that are ready to rock and you have a wiggling, jiggling Drawbot, if you have some paper, set it on paper and take off the marker caps. If you don't have paper right now, just set it down and see, does it wiggle and move? I'm going to recap the final steps. Boop, 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 boop. We've gone ahead and we've attached a weight. It's just a lightweight piece of foam, but a weight to the end of our motor to create a whole assembly that can be attached to our standing parts. Once it's attached and the wires are plugged in, everything can wiggle. If yours isn't wiggling, check to see that the wires are making contact with the ends of the battery. One way of troubleshooting is disconnecting it, taking that top apart. If you need to, taking the motor all the way out, and then plugging the wires into the battery just to see if the motor will spin on its own. This is usually the spot that requires the most practice and troubleshooting. If you're noticing that your motor won't spin, make sure that your wires are touching the metal ends, one on one end and one on the other end of the battery. If you need to, you can even take off the rubber band and hold the wires in place with your fingers. It won't hurt you. That electricity is super low voltage. You won't be able to sense it, but those wires will definitely allow that electricity to flow along that circuit. And as long as those wires are underneath the rubber band, they'll hold in place. Jiggle it and wiggle it a little bit until you notice that that motor is spinning. If you need to, you may give the motor a kickstart when it's plugged in. That also could help with troubleshooting. So, to see your markers in action, set it down on paper. You'll get an image of that wiggling. You'll start to visualize vibration just by watching the markers dance and dot their way along a piece of paper. The question here is there another way of making this? I've shared with you a way, but not the only way to make it. Are there other ways to go about engineering a machine using a vibrating motor with a weight attached to the end of it so it will wiggle and draw? What other ways could we do it? I believe that the best way to figure that out is just to give it a try. What would you improve? How would you change this? You could take it apart completely. Like if I was going to make that wiggle a little stronger, I might add another part to my zigzag that's attached to the motor. It might give it a little bit more oomph to its wiggle. If I put too much weight on it, what would happen? Would it slow it down? Would it keep the motor from spinning? How can I get the motor spinning if it's going slow? I guess I just have to try. What else could get connected together? Again, this is one way of building it, but there's a lot of ways of making this. Here's a crazy way with the motor underneath. It doesn't use a circle at all. All the parts hold the markers and the battery and the motor, but how could this even begin to work? We've seen it work. There's so many ways of making this go. Making it look like the picture on the package isn't always the best way. Quick refresher, and then you are free to explore and iterate. Vibration. Vibration and iteration. Sounds the same, totally different things. Vibration is all about making things that shake and wiggle. The shaking and the wiggling is because there is some weight on the end of that motor that was shaking back and forth so fast that it made the whole thing vibrate. Iteration is probably what you're doing right now, improving upon your design, troubleshooting to see how would we make this work better. Now, there's lots of things that FutureMakers has made with us and in part of this library series. This is probably the most open-ended challenge we've had so far. It's challenging for two big reasons. It's full of choose your own adventure, and it's got a lot of technique that you need to understand. Like one of the questions here, what's the little waxy white rod of plastic for? Is it an extra weight? Well, Johan, that is correct. You could attach that to your motor. If you have that little piece of glue stick, it can just be pressed right down onto the motor. Another question, did you connect one wire to each end? Yes, we attached a wire to each end of the battery. In order to make that circuit flow, one wire needs to touch one side, maybe the side with the bump, and the other wire needs to touch the flat side. You'll notice that the motor will want to start spinning. And if it doesn't, hold the wires in place and give the motor end a little twist. It might just need a little to get it going. I'm sorry that there are some people that might be on the struggle bus. The struggle bus happens. Engineers are up against the struggle bus every single day. Artists and designers, people that bake, people that cook, people that have to work from recipes, but the recipes never seem right. You always need to have a chance to make it your own. So don't give up. Keep on trying. Are there any other questions in the chat that I might have missed, Miss Katie?
No, I think we got them all. And I think it's such a great point that you make, that it's okay if it doesn't work the first time, right? That's how we learn, is by experimenting and making mistakes and trying again. And you're right. Someone just said, this is hard. It is kind of hard, but hopefully it's also fun. And the nice thing is that you can do this at your own pace. You can watch the recording again. You can look at your instructions and see that different iteration that Coach Matt was talking about and try it maybe a different way and see if that works. So yeah, don't give up. It's okay if it's hard. Next month is going to be hard too, right, Coach Matt?
Yeah, I think the next project that we're doing, is that our electric vehicle project?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that is on the other end of the spectrum. The electric vehicle project is basically it. It's an electric vehicle. It doesn't have nearly as many choices and opportunities to make it work weird like this one does. Hard fun is more fun than easy fun. So you'll find that, and this is a question I noticed in the chat, what age group is this project for? Well, this project really is designed for families to be together, but we found that as young as first or second grade, once they have a gist of where it's going, really can start to iterate and build much more independently. So once the little fingers get sort of over the practice points, then things get a little cooler and a little weirder and a little more awesome. Electric vehicles are going to be an excellent challenge for everybody, but something that everybody will be able to do pretty successfully by the time we're done.
Yeah, it's good to have a little challenge, right? It makes us resilient. We've all learned so much resilience over the pandemic in one way, and this is resilience in a different way. So it's good. Don't worry if it's hard. Don't stress yourself out. Just keep trying and make sure you register for next month and join us. It's okay if it's hard, right? That's why you get to keep it. You can keep it and play with it as much as you want and figure it out. It'll be all right.
Yep.
Oh, good. I'm glad I'm seeing lots of awesomes. Fantastic. Oh no, someone's computer died. Don't worry. If
We
your
got a
computer
recording.
died, we've got the recording. It'll come by the end of the week. So don't worry. It's okay. We'll make it work. Thank you all so much for coming tonight and joining us here at Calvert Library and with FutureMakers. I hope everybody had a good time. I had a good time. I got to see some really cool iterations and designs in-house here in the branch. So yay, thank you all so much. Thank you, Coach Matt.
You got it. Thanks a lot. I hope everybody
one
has
more,
a good one.
One more question, Coach Matt.
Yeah.
It says, when you attach a glue stick, will it melt?
No, that's a really wonderful question. The glue stick in this case acts as a piece of smushy plastic, but it will not melt. Thermoplastic glue really requires temperatures way, way hotter than any motor is going to be able to spin it through the friction of air. I don't think you're going to have to worry about the glue stick melting.
All right, I think that's it. Thank you all again so much. Thank you, Coach Matt. Everybody have a great night, and we'll see you next month.
Take care, everybody. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.